Everybody joining the meeting today. This is a launch of our new SecureOVI product. What we'll do today is we will talk about why we need to secure our cards, how to build a secure card, why traditional holograms are so expensive, how a SecureOVI is made, and why it saves time and money. We're going to talk about combining holograms with the SecureOVI product, talk about generic testing and durability of our laminates, and then also a price use case. So why do we need to secure our cards today? Sometimes this is a little tongue-in-cheek, like my niece, who is over 21 now, but before she was 21, she had a really authentic-looking Connecticut driver's license. There are a lot of websites out there nowadays that can provide a pretty good-looking card with a pretty accurate driver's license and even a hologram. So it's kind of funny for when kids do this kind of thing. It's obviously against the law, but it's a little humorous that they can get a card that's that authentic looking. But the real problem is when you have bad guys or bad gals that get one of those cards, and these people are able to access airports, they're able to buy tickets, they're able to fake identities so that they can take advantage of social services. So where are these cards coming from? Unfortunately, most of them are coming from legitimate factories in China. So what's happening is you've got large manufacturers of decorative holographic foils. The foils that you see every day that are used on boxes of crayons, on boxes of cereal with a small hologram on it. What those guys are doing now is they're getting better at what they do. So instead of making a metallic hologram, they're making a clear hologram like we use on our photo IDs. So they're basically practicing on our under 21 crowd to be able to make a nice authentic looking card. So how does that affect our daily life? Well, we always need to be vigilant and we have to train our customers on what to look for. But let's face it, most of the time our customers' cards look pretty simple. So a standard photo ID for an employee card has no security on it at all. So it's something that's very easily faked. Anybody can get a hold of a printer on eBay and fake a card that looks like this. So let's talk about building a secure card. A secure card, I appreciate if everybody stays on mute. Sorry about that. How to build a secure card, and it has three different elements in a card security. You've got overt, covert, and forensic elements that are available. So overt elements are elements that we're used to seeing, right? And we can see them with the naked eye, like hologram or guillotine pattern or the OVI that we're talking about. There are covert elements. Those covert elements require a tool to be able to detect them. So a UV or an IR ink, microtext or nanotext, or a laser retrievable image where you need actually a laser pen to be able to reflect a hidden image off of a hologram. And then there's forensic images or forensic elements. And those forensic elements are usually buried in the surface of the card somewhere. So it could be in some of the plastic layers or beneath the paper layers of a passport or a secure document. And a forensic element is usually not detected until after the bad guy's been caught and the law enforcement officials have that document in their hands and they can destroy it and look for the forensic element. Those elements are there just for this purpose. It is to find out if the card that was used to do bad things was gotten through authorized means. Or did they have a friend working at the DMV working overtime and did they make a fake ID for them? So these elements are very common, especially the overt features, and we always recommend that you use at least 2 or more features in a secure card. So you combine a hologram with a microtext or a hologram with the UV ink or multiple hologram features. The more elements you add to the card, the harder it'll be to counterfeit. Oh, it's time for a quiz. All right, so what I'll do is I will go through these slowly and I'll wait for you guys to chat in, and if nobody chats in, I'll just give you the answers. How's that? Why are there so many fake IDs out there? Okay, nobody's chiming in, so everybody should know the answer. It's because of the want to be 21 crowd is driving business for small hologram companies. We've got an easy to buy comment out there. How many layers of security are there? There are 3 layers of security. These guys are quick. And what's the most commonly used security feature? We've got some overts out there. Everybody's right. Overt holograms, which is obviously an overt element. And what's the easiest way to secure your customers' cards? People are saying hologram, hologram. It is hologram. It's a very simple way to change is to keep your customers' cards safe. But another good way is just to continually require or ask your customer to change their card, whether they're adding a hologram or changing a font style or changing the colors. As long as they're continually changing that card, they should be able to keep the bad guys at bay for at least a period of time. Good job on the quiz, everybody. So why are holograms so expensive? There's obviously a huge investment here to make a hologram. You have got these 9 individual steps, and then within each of these steps you've got subsets to make a hologram in a large fashion. Let's talk about each one here, and I'm going to pause for questions as we get into this because this gets a little thick. So most of you are familiar with how to make a hologram. Customer will submit a piece of artwork to you, and that's usually a logo or some sort of text that goes along with the logo. What you do and what I do is develop a piece of artwork or print proof. That print proof is signed by everybody, and then the print proof is sent to the hologram manufacturer. And in the olden days, so 10 years ago or so, the holograms were primarily made the way the right picture shows it. You have a very cool laser table, you have guys wearing cool goggles, and this laser table style is great for creating very high-end 3D holograms. So if you see that really cool looking hologram of Mickey Mouse somewhere out there, it looks very realistic in 3D. That was made on a hologram table like this one. What we do on a daily basis is a little less formal and a little faster to production, and that's done with the dot matrix laser holographic origination machine. And think about it as a dot matrix printer. So what it does is you upload the image to the PC that's attached to the laser printer, and you're basically shooting the image 1 dot at a time, up to 600 dots per inch, into a piece of acrylic plastic. And depending on the angle of the laser will depend upon what light will reflect. So that's how we get the different colors in a hologram. So what this dot matrix machine will do is it'll create one holographic image. It can be an image with text or anything around it, but it's just creating one piece or one master of that hologram. And then what you do is you take that master that's been shot into a piece of acrylic and you go to the electroplating tanks. And if anybody's ever had their wheels chromed on their car, they know what electroplating is. You basically are growing metal on the acrylic master. After a couple of days in the electroplating tank, then you have one master hologram used to be able to go into production with. After you have that one master hologram, you take it to a step and repeat machine. And what that does is it does exactly what it sounds like, is it takes that one image and it steps and repeats it out multiple times so that we can eventually create the holographic image. And that's also pressed into acrylic. So then what you do after you've stepped and repeated it to the desired width, you take it back to the electroplating lab and you grow an embossing shim or master cylinder. So this shim that was created in the electroplating tank is then used to actually emboss the polyester laminate material that will eventually become a patch. So standard embossing process using heat and pressure to impress an image onto a piece of plastic. So while that process is going on, you also have the material being coated. So the laminate material that's going onto a card has adhesives on it, it has release layers on it, sometimes it has holographic layers on it so that it'll accept a hologram into it more easily. So the coaters are hugely important. Most of the time if you have a failure with a laminate material, it's because of the coating process. Either it's too much or too little, or there's lines in the coating. This is a very important process. And this coater here looks pretty small on the slide, but it's probably as big as half of my office. It's huge. So once the coating is done and the material is embossed, you go to a vacuum metallizer. This is probably the coolest piece of equipment in the whole facility. Looks like a big giant submarine. What you do is you take the material, the roll of material that's been coated and embossed, and you put it inside of the vacuum metallizer, suck all the air out of it, and then you superheat zinc metal, and that vaporizes and it sticks to the material. So what that's called is high reflective index coating, and that is what gives the image the bright crispness of a hologram, and that also is what keeps the image in the plastic. So if we didn't do that HRI treatment, you would literally be able to stretch the hologram image out of the plastic. And then one of the final steps in the process is the converting process. So what we're doing in this step is you're taking the carrier material, you're attaching the laminate patch to the carrier, you're printing any eye marks that are necessary, you're die cutting it, and putting it into rolls that can then be put onto a tabletop and then wound down into a material roll that can be fit into a printer. So obviously there's a huge amount of steps here. So that's why we have that's why you have such a large MOQ requirement, 50 rolls or about 12,000 images. And that's why the lead times can be 8 to 10 weeks. They've obviously got a lot of orders to fill, and they've got to get them all through that very narrow pipeline. So when you pay for an origination, what you're really paying for are steps 1 through 5. So you're paying for the hologram origination, the electroplating, the step and repeat, the electroplating, and the embossing. So that one-time fee is what pays for all of those elements. And then it's up to the manufacturer of the material to reshoot an image if that master shim goes bad. They don't last forever, so from time to time they do have to regrow a new master. That was a lot of information, guys. Does anybody have any questions on any of that stuff? All right, that must be, oh, we've got one. No questions. Okay, I'll move on. So what is a SecureOVI from IDP? What we've done is we've combined the durability of our 1mm patch material with the security of an OVI. And an OVI is a optically variable ink that can replace a traditional hologram for its visual flash effect with lower minimum quantities and a lower price. So the inks, they give you the ability they switch in color. They switch from blue to gold, red to green, or gold to silver. All right, so they don't give you that bright flash that a hologram gives you, but they do give you a color on the card and a sense of change when you angle that card. The way we create an OVI is quite a bit more simply than we create a hologram. Okay, so in a hologram, it requires a origination. For an OVI, it only requires a printing flexo cylinder. And then the number of cylinders that you'll need will depend upon a number of colors that you choose. So you can choose up to 4 different colors. So if you have 4 different colors, you're going to have to pay for 4 different flexo printing cylinders. So a hologram requires electroplating, OVI does not. Hologram requires step and repeat, OVI does not. Hologram requires electroplating again, OVI does not. A hologram requires embossing, OVI does not. Hologram requires coating, and OVI does also, yes, require coating because we are still required to stick to the card and have those good durability elements in the material. Hologram requires vacuum metallization, and OVI does not. And the OVI does require a converting system, and the main reason is that because obviously you've got to attach the carrier to the patch, but this is where the security is printed. So the flexo printing cylinders go into the converting machine, and this is where the colors are applied, dried, and the material is all die cut. So this is really where all the action is. So at OVI, holograms require a long lead time. OVI doesn't have as many features, building elements, so it requires half the lead time. So you're looking at 4 to 5 weeks instead of 8 to 10. Hologram requires a large MLQ, and OVI cuts the MLQs down to a third. Only 15 rolls for a 50L and 10 rolls for a 70L. The OVI only requires one step in the origination process, and that origination is only $750 MSRP. And that's per color, so if you do a couple of colors, it would be $1,400, but that's still quite a bit less expensive than an origination. Oh, it's quiz time again. All right, I'm going to let you guys answer. How many steps are needed to create a hologram origination? We got 11, we have 8. Anybody else? 5, 9, 5 is the right answer. How many steps are needed to create an OVI? Just one. Sorry, I was too quick with my mouse click. And then how much is an OVI origination? We have a $0. Nope, that's wrong. $750 per color. There's a bunch of them popping up right now. Thank you. $750 per color. Some of the other cool things you can do with OVIs is you can combine them with a hologram. So if a customer is currently using a custom hologram today, you could enhance their features on their next order by adding an OVI to it. If you like our globe flags image by chance that you see in front of you, but you want to have your customer's logo on it, then you do the logo in OVI and combine that with the globe flags hologram. So it gives you some cool features there. So let's talk real quick about testings and standards, because I know this comes up often. IDP uses an independent laboratory to test for a lot of different elements, and these tests are all derived from what's called an ISO standard called ANSI Insights 322-2008. It's basically a long, boring document that talks about how to test a card that's going to be used for photo IDs. And the FIPS government compliance requires ANSI 322 testings. A lot of driver's license authorities require it. And really, it comes down to the nitty-gritty of the procedures of how to test a card for scratch resistance, for durability, right? For fading, so they don't fade in the sun. For dye migration, you guys may have seen cards in your careers where the inks start to move and the lines become very faded, and it almost looks like somebody just smudged the ink with their thumb. You know that's not possible, but that's what dye migration looks like, and they test for that by actually putting the cards into an oven with some water to create a hot, damp environment. And then delamination is a huge element to test for, so we're testing for the pull or peel strength of the laminate off the card, so we want to make sure it sticks to the card. And then there's also a cross-hatch tape test, which is pretty important too. That's shown in the bottom right corner there, where you actually score the material and you put a piece of heavy-duty industrial tape on it, you rip the tape off, and hopefully all the squares are still left on the card. So a couple of things to keep in mind when you're putting together an OVI security laminate design is that this is an ink that's printed onto the adhesive of the card, the adhesive of the patch, and then that patch is laminated to the card. So what that does do is it does weaken the adhesive slightly underneath the ink. So you don't want a big blot of ink on the upper corner of the card, because you'd be able to a little more easily pull the laminate off the card. So when you're designing an OVI, just make sure that the elements or the security feature that you want on the card to be well inside the card's range, and then also not too big and too thick, because that'll just it'll hamper or reduce the adhesion, excuse me, of the patch to the card. And those are similar things that you need to look out for when you're doing a UV or other sorts of inks underneath the card laminate surface. So IDP's 1 mil laminate meets or exceeds all common card durability and lifetime industry standards. So all of our materials have been tested at the independent lab, and we've got results if anybody's interested in taking a look at them. Some good nighttime reading. Let's talk a little bit about pricing. So we talked about how the material is going to save money. So the nice thing about this material is the MOQ. So you're looking at 15 rolls for a 50L and 10 rolls for a 70L. The price per roll is pretty much the same as the price per roll of the material, of holographic material, but you obviously have to buy less of it. And then the origination fees are $750 per color. So if we look at a use case, so if we look at a common customer who's happily printing away with their 50L and they need to print and laminate 5,000 cards over the next 2 years. So we look at it in the traditional holographic program, we'd be looking at an origination fee of $3,800, and then we'd be looking at an MOQ of 50 rolls. So these are MSRP prices, but the end customer would be looking at a bill of around $13,000. In OVI, you'd be looking at a $750 origination fee and only 20 rolls to create those 5,000 cards, $3,600 for a grand total of $4,300. So it's quite a bit less expensive than the traditional holographic elements. So who's the key customer, or who are the ideal customers for this kind of technology? We think that if anybody's using a clear laminate today, having them step up to a 15-roll order isn't that big of a deal, and they can have a custom image. Or if they're using one of our generic images, having them have a custom image is a great feature. It's a great way to move for them. So an OVI can replace the visual security of a hologram at a better price with lower MRQs. Right? This should give you some tools to upsell clear customers. Also be able to convert some generic hologram users over to a custom. And the best thing about a custom is that you've got that customer for at least 3 years, because that's usually as long as it takes them to go through the material and to start evaluating their next steps. And the way we treat a custom image is pretty special, because it is a custom image. It's a security element that the customer's entrusted with us. So we're not going to sell it to anybody that calls us for pricing. So if you're the dealer that gets the customer to buy the security elements, if another dealer or whoever calls and asks for pricing and availability and wants us to deliver that product, we're not going to deliver it to them. That's your product. The only way that we would change is if the end customer contacts us and says that they want to change their dealer. So pretty much you're locked in. So what I'd like to do now is I'm going to start up my camera here, and if all works well in the technology world, you should be able to see my webcam, and I'll give you an idea of what we're looking at here. First off, so I'll start off with the pristine, easy-to-view version of it. So this element, this is an OVI, and we're showing it on a black card. Let me get it into focus here. And the black card obviously is going to show it in the best light. If you put a hologram on a black card, it's going to blind you. So this is the element that we're talking about on a black card. Here's the same element on a kind of traditionally printed state driver's license type card. This camera will focus here for us. Come on. For some reason it's not focusing. Sorry, folks, but you get the idea. I'm sure you can see it there. Oh, there it goes. Okay. And then here is the elements on a more white background card. And then just remember the way that you get the colors to flip is to angle the image. So if you angle it on the axis, you're going to be able to get the color shift. And then here is our traditional hologram. So just to give you an idea, apples to apples of the elements. So when you switch your customer over from a hologram or a clear to a SecureOVI, the real thing to teach them is that, you know, an OVI is not going to blind them the way a hologram will, but it will give them a good shift and it will be a unique image. So you're going to have to train them a little bit on how to use or how to view it under the best light and in the best circumstances. I'm going to shut my camera off here. So I've got some time available for questions if anybody has any. And again, I think you'd like to get some of these into your hands. So please let Donna know if you'd like some samples. I think that's the best way to move forward. And then if you have artwork, you have customers that are interested, you believe, and you want to start presenting them with artwork proofs, let us know. We have a pretty good crack team over here of artists, and we can put together some nice proposals for you. One question is, can we get samples? Absolutely, we can get samples. No other questions? All right. Sounds very good. I appreciate everybody's time today, and please let us know how we can help. Have a good day.
Thank you.